Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lit Chick. It's Alex Hoops here with Meg Cabot, who we're so excited to have on our show this Friday to talk about her new book, No Words. I'm sure you all know Meg Cabot. I know from all the messages that I've been getting across social media this week that we've got some big fans in the audience, but I am going to read Meg's bio for you just to give a little bit of context before we start talking about this incredible new book. Meg Cabot was born in Bloomington, Indiana during the Chinese astrological year of the Fire Horse, a notoriously unlucky sign, but learned at an early age that a good storyteller can always give herself a happy ending. Her 80-plus books for adults and teens have included multiple #1 New York Times bestsellers, selling over 25 million copies worldwide. Her Princess Diaries series has been published in more than 38 countries and was made into 2 hit films by Disney. Meg's numerous other award-winning books include the Mediator series, the Heather Wells Mystery series, and Avalon High, the latter of which was made into a film for the Disney Channel. Meg Cabot currently lives in Key West, Florida, with her husband and various cats. Meg, welcome to Lit Chick.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, we're thrilled to have you here. I love that, on your Wikipedia page, it says chick lit author, and I like that you're using that term. We're trying to kind of reclaim it here on this show. But you're a star in this field. So welcome. And also congratulations on the publication of No Words, which came out October 12th. So it's been a busy month probably. And there is the beautiful book there, which matches our pink Lit Chick logo so perfectly.
Yeah, I love this cover. It's beautiful. And it totally does match your site. I love it. It's great.
It's gorgeous. And it's so perfect for the setting on Little Bridge Island. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about first. But tell us a little bit about No Words, and then we'll get into more of the story.
Right. Well, No Words is actually about an author who happens to be an author of children's books. And she is invited to a book festival on a tropical island in the Florida Keys. And she only wants to go if her arch nemesis, an author of literary fiction, he thinks, Will Price, is not going to be there, because she is definitely not a fan, and she's assured he's not going to be there. And as often happens in romantic comedies, it turns out, of course, he is there. And so she's stuck on an island with her arch nemesis. And I'm not going to say what happens, because that would be a spoiler, but there's a lot of arguing, a lot of margarita drinking, and maybe some kissing.
Some kissing, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I loved this book. I loved Little Bridge Island. I love this literary festival hosted by a library. And I also read your previous book too, which is connected to this one a little bit. So we have some characters from the past book, No Offense, that make appearances in this book, which I loved. So if you're looking for any kind of little sneak previews, you can check out No Offense, which is also about this librarian.
Right.
I wanted to just first get it on the table that I found the Princess Diaries series in my local library. Shout out to the Lawrence, Kansas Public Library, where I am from. I spent a long time in the teen section reading those books and scouring them for the covers and being angry when they were out of order, and then trying to decide if I should read them out of order.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in my library when I was a kid, the Monroe County Library. And now I live in Key West, which is also Monroe County. So I have a Monroe County Library here,
which funny.
I'm like, oh my God, it's fate.
It's fate. Monroe, what does it mean?
Yes.
Our library was wonderful. They recently, in Lawrence, Kansas, they've renovated it maybe 5 or 10 years ago, which it's gorgeous now. I love it. But there was something a little bizarre about going back to like my place and seeing it totally different. So getting used to it a little bit. But yes, love the local library stuff. And this Little Bridge Literary Festival is like the first year that they're hosting it. And you have assembled just like the perfect crew of author personalities, which of course, as a person in publishing, I recognized immediately. Like from the moment at the airport, I was like, oh no, it's this guy.
Yeah, well, I was writing this book during the pandemic, and I was really missing book festivals because as an author, I get invited to so many book festivals and I love going to them. And I, of course, was kind of reminiscing, okay, well, who are the people that you generally meet at these book festivals? And I did kind of assemble some of my favorite authors. I tried to disguise them so that they wouldn't recognize themselves. But you have your horror author who is so funny because the horror authors that I run into are always the nicest people. Like they write these horrifying books, and then in reality, Saul, in this book, it's Saul and his wife Franny, such a sweet couple, total relationship goals. And Joe in the book is just like, if only I could find my Franny, like Saul has found his Franny, and so sweet. And then of course you have your the guy that she doesn't want to meet at all, Will, who's the snobby, she thinks, literary fiction guy who actually writes kind of trauma porn is what she calls it.
Yes.
These romance novels that always end tragically. And she's so mad that they're so popular because she's like, why does anyone even want to read these books? And then you have the guy who writes the books with the magic in them for kids.
Loved this character.
Who inevitably shows up at book festivals and does like magic for the kids, but then he also does the magic on like every adult that he meets, and she's just like, oh my god, stop, just why can't you act like a normal person and stop doing magic on me at 8 o'clock in the morning? And it's kind of like a weird, like he's hitting on her in a way, and this frequently happens. I just have to say, as someone who attends a lot of book festivals, there's always that one guy, and sometimes it's a woman, but it's almost always a guy who's like, oh, good morning, it's 7, you haven't had your coffee yet, I'm gonna do a puppet show in your face. And you're just like, oh, I'm gonna
100%. I had a college boyfriend who was into magic, and I think since then it's a big red flag for me. I like it if it's fantasy, but like the magician stuff, it's a whole vibe. So the minute that we saw this character, I was like, oh no, I know what this is.
I like it. Yeah, red flag, definite red flag.
No offense to any like magicians out there. You have to overcome this stereotype, but I'm sure you can find a way.
There's a way you can do it and not be creepy. Like that,
100%.
It's perfect. And actually that is shown in the book. There is, I'm not going to give anything away, but there is some magic that happens. There's the green flash that we, if you're a native Floridian or other places where you have the sunset into the ocean, everybody talks about the green flash and how magical that is. There's lots of other kinds of magic that you can do. Just don't like force your magic onto people. Yes. It should be consensual magic.
Consensual magic, lit chick. That is going to be our new phrase. Okay, I love it. Could be applicable to so many things.
Exactly.
And then our protagonist too. I want to talk about Jo, who I love so much. She shows up in her dark sunglasses with her hair dyed black.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful island. And immediately, okay, she's not having it. And I think I get that because she's suffering from writer's block, which I have to give you a big kudos for the title, No Words, about a writer with writer's block. Chef's kiss. I love how brilliant that works out. And she's trying to think of the next idea for her YA series, which I'm sure is something that you could certainly relate to. And I also have to say, Meg, it is a testament to your skill as a YA and adult author that this kitty series about the kitten sitter is so compelling that I found myself being like, I hope that we get like a spin-off. It was like a fictional book within a book that was still had an exciting enough pitch for me to be like, I would fully read this series about a kitten babysitter.
Wow. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah, Jo has a problem. She is on book 27 of the Kitty Cat series, which is very popular, but she cannot think of a plot for book 27. And part of it is Will's fault. It's the antagonist's fault.
Yes.
And she is struggling a lot with it, and finally has basically given up. And that's something that I've experienced in my own life where I can't figure out the plot for the book that I actually have due. But I can think of all sorts of other ideas for other books. And that's what Jo is doing. So she has no words. And then it turns out that Will, who is her nemesis, he is struggling with just saying the right thing. He cannot verbalize his intentions or what it is that he wants to say. And when he does say things, it's always the wrong thing. So both of them just have a lot of problems with words during this book.
Yes, which is a trouble for writers to have, the perfect problem.
Yeah.
So I had to ask too, like, this book is more so than your other books, sort of, I won't say it's semi-autobiographical because I don't know you well enough and that's not probably the case. But it is about a writer who is like, you know, feels like she's been writing YA for a really long time, is attending these book festivals. Did this idea, have you been wanting to write about this writing experience for a while? Does it at all feel sort of like a retrospective in any way, or?
That's a good question. I don't feel the way that Jo does. Jo is angry, actually, at the beginning of the book. She's angry because teens who had started out reading her books when they were young keep coming up to her and saying, "Oh, I used to love your books." And now they've moved on and they're reading Will's books, which are the books that Jo hates. And she's kind of taken aback by that. And she hasn't quite grasped the fact that, you know, her books are for really young readers. They're not for teenagers anymore.
Yeah.
And she hasn't quite realized that if she would just keep writing and coming up with new things, then she would get a whole new generation of readers. So I've actually moved on from that myself, but I think that for her it's a struggle, so I can understand. And I love she's really upset for the cast of Friends because she keeps thinking about, oh my gosh, I wonder if people come up to like Jennifer Aniston and say, "Oh, I used to love Friends," and she's like, "Well, don't people still love Friends?" And so she's concerned. She feels kind of a lot of sympathy for Ross and Rachel, which I find hilarious. So yeah, in that way,
money. They don't need your sympathy, Jo.
I know. She has some things to work through. In that way, I find it funny.
Definitely. And it must be interesting too, writing YA versus writing adult. I think it's not something I consciously thought of as a reader myself because I was such a big YA fan in my teens and 20s. And I don't think that there was a day that came where I said, okay, now I'm going to write an adult book, you know? Right. I think I probably read like a John Irving novel or something in high school and was like, what does this mean? Or like, I'm confused by this. You know, you sort of slide into it very gently. But like, is it different for you? I'm curious because we have a lot of viewers who are in the process of working on their own books or interested in craft. Do you approach them the same way? I mean, other than sprinkling in adult themes, which, you know, in No Words, the characters kiss and curse and are drinking,
which they do in YA books too.
Yeah.
The difference for me, I've always written adult books, so my career began with writing adult books,
adult romance,
and then I wrote The Princess Diaries, which I considered an adult book until I was told, no, it's actually for a teen.
Oh, fascinating.
So, yeah, it was kind of a fluke for me that I ended up kind of starting to write YA, and I continued to write for both adults and teens. So for me, it's more a matter of what the problems are that the characters are having. So when I think of a plot, I'll be like, okay, is this a problem that a kid would be having or an adult would be having? And then really it's more like, are they going to have a curfew? Do they need to be home at night? Is the problem that they have to go to, they don't have a date for the big dance, or that they're having a work related problem? So it's really more, again, about the language that they use, because in some YAs, they don't want you to use certain kind of foul language. Although my adult editor doesn't really like me to use foul language in even my adult books. So it just depends. And I think that it's a fun challenge both ways, because writing for adults, an adult audience, having the conflict be something, in this book, for instance, it's work related.
Yeah.
She has this giant conflict with this man because he said something really bad about her book, one of her books previously. And he said it to a New York Times reporter, who then it was published everywhere. Her dad saw it, and she's like, oh my gosh, how could you have said that? What do you have against me and my books? That isn't something that a teen necessarily would, although they could actually be upset about something on social media, I would think. But this was a very adult, I think, problem and conflict. Whereas if I had a teen situation, I would have made it more maybe of a teen book. Although I don't really know. It could easily have worked as a teen book, but I don't know if they'd be going to a book festival necessarily for their own, although they could.
Yeah, I mean, there are teen authors out there. There are teens attending the book.
Yeah, absolutely. It could easily have been. This one just worked out to be an adult book.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. And also fascinating to hear that the Princess Diaries didn't start out that way. You know, all of these genre conventions are very specific. And I feel like the more into the algorithm we get, you know, and the more that Amazon works the way it is, the more important that those sorts of tags are becoming in publishing. So it's interesting to see it evolve.
Yeah. Well, and with the Princess Diaries, that started with me being upset that my mom was dating one of my teachers in real life. So I started writing about that, and I was actually 30 at the time. So I made the character 30, and of course, then my agent was like, "Why is she 30? This makes no sense. Like, why is this girl so upset about her mom dating her teacher?" And I'm like, "Because it's really happening." And she said, "Well, it might make more sense if she was a bit younger." So I had to then, you know, transfer her to high school, which she turned out to be right. That did make more sense.
Yeah, but that's interesting to hear, kind of like the provenance of that character, because I think what's so appealing about Mia is that she does feel in many ways wise beyond her years, or familiar enough with the adult world that she, you know, has these existential problems. So that's why I related to her, maybe. Feeling like a 30-year-old in like a 15-year-old body.
Yeah. And well, she's a New Yorker and she has a single mom, and she's been to Europe many times. She just didn't quite realize, you know, that she was there because her dad was the prince. Right. It was before social media, though. So she didn't really have the internet. She didn't have access to the internet the way the rest of us do now.
I know. If Mia had just simply Googled like Genovia, right, where would we be now?
I know, but that's why the story works, because they didn't. And, you know, so I just did the 20th anniversary update, which are all these.
Yes, I want to let our readers know, that we have new covers, right, for the Princess Diaries.
And also we updated some of the references in the books.
Interesting.
A few of the dead celebrities, we you know, some of those references were like, oh, it's so sad. Anna Nicole Smith. Oh, it's so sad. Yeah. So we took that out. But I started realizing, you know, some of the story just wouldn't work if she had had access to the internet. She easily could have just been like, Genovia, okay. So, and you know, there's a part of the book where she's so upset because her dad won't get her a beeper.
Right.
She really wants one. So, you know, and I think that's kind of fun because it's like a little capsule, a time capsule of the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that, you know, as people my age are approaching their 30s and doing a lot of reflecting on their childhood and all of that these stories are becoming particularly more meaningful or holding some sort of nostalgic power. So I would definitely recommend, if anybody wants to float back to Genovia, check out those reissues. I feel like I would love to have that on my shelf. There's a moment in the book where you talk about book signings in No Words, where characters are bringing their old copies to have them signed by the author. Yeah. And how I think you made a comment that you could tell when the book wasn't purchased at the festival or at a bookstore, but had been stolen from a library or taken from school. And I was thinking about how many of the books on my shelf as a teen were, you know, gotten under, you know, mysterious circumstances, stolen, grabbed, borrowed, and not returned. And I resonated with that deeply. So, but it would be nice to have a crispy Meg Cabot Princess Diaries book.
And as an author, I do not mind when people come up and they bring their really old copy of one of my books, and it's so well loved that the pages feel so silky smooth because they've been thumbed so many times and they're velvety. Because I have books of my own, not that I've written, but of authors that I love that are just like that. But at a certain point, I do go out and I buy new copies because I'm like, oh my God, this thing's going to fall apart. And I do want to keep reading it. So I keep the treasured old copy, you know, on the shelf. And then I buy the new copy so that I can continue to read it, you know, in the pool or the bathtub or wherever, so that the pages just don't fall and float away, which has happened. And I totally get it.
Yeah. And it's also exciting too. I mean, I guess there'll be a couple more years until this timing is the point, but to buy a new edition for their kids or their nieces and nephews, which is really an exciting prospect. I know my mom read me all of her favorites from growing up. And so, yeah the prospect of revisiting Princess Diaries again is great. But I do want to talk about No Words too, because this book.
Oh, right. Yes.
I know I could talk about Princess Diaries for probably forever. And I know that our audience probably wants us to, but I have to say, if you are craving a similar experience, what I loved about No Words is I feel like I still got the Meg Cabot like signature snark and the funny references, and it just felt familiar, but like so much more sort of age appropriate, which I love. And this character that you've created of Will is the perfect romantic, lead. We talk about how to create that person. And so I wonder, did you come up with Joe and then Will sort of emerged as a counterpoint, or did you have an idea of who you wanted both of them to be? They seem so opposite in many ways, but of course so perfect for one another as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, and I think that what's so great about the whole concept is that it's a book about books and about people who love books, especially since it's set at a book festival. So everyone involved in the book is somebody who loves books and wants to be there to talk about books. And Will especially came out of Joe being just terrifically angry because she thinks that he's not somebody who loves books or loves stories. The thing, when I think about Will, the first thing I think of is the scene where she talks about how, when she'll get off a plane, back when we used to ride planes all the time, and she would go on book tours and she would walk past the airport bookstore and she would see the big cardboard cutout of Will because he's a huge best-selling author. And she just wanted to punch him in the face. She wanted to punch that cardboard cutout because everybody's buying his books and all his books are being made into these cheesy movies that, the hero always dies at the end in a cauldron, a volcano, and she's just like, how can anybody like these movies? They're so depressing. And Will, on the other hand, when she actually starts to begin to talk to him, because she's never really had like a long talk with him before, she met him briefly, he's like, people need that kind of catharsis. Some people need to go and have a big cry at the movies or over a book. And since Grecian times, they've been putting on Greek tragedies. And they did that because people needed to get out their emotions in a healthy way over something that's fictional. And why are you giving me such a hard time about this? This is what I do. And you do something that's also good. You provide fun and comic entertainment for young people. And I provide this other thing. And she's even more mad after that because she's like, oh my God, he's right. And she can't believe that he actually has called her on, her thing that she's been holding on to for so long. And that's when she kind of starts to overcome her writer's block, because she starts to realize that maybe she's been holding on to this anger kind of irrationally. Although, I personally think that it was okay for her to be so mad for so long, but it's an interesting story, and it's not something that I've ever experienced, but I thought it would be fun to write about somebody who did have that, because it's something that I think that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, when you're dealing with author personalities, obviously you have to separate the art from the artist in a way, or these people are, and I love this too, you described Joe's author photo, which is something that people look at all the time when they're reading, right? And those author photos are so important, more so than a headshot, because as you're reading, it's kind of informing the way that you are working.
Right.
And I always practice when I was working in publishing, acquiring books, and also when I'm reading a new book, I try really hard not to look online at what the person looks like, because I'm so afraid that if I see some tweet or some comment in an article or some Instagram post, that it's going to change, how the writing is functioning for me too. So.
Yeah, I definitely do think that you can hold the writer responsible.
Yeah.
And you sometimes can't separate the artist from the art.
Yeah, of course.
Totally fine. It's totally fine to hold them responsible. But yeah, I did think it was really funny how she looks completely different from when she first started out. And because I'm the same way, I started out with really dark, severe hair, and now I'm a blonde. And Joe's the opposite. She started out honey blonde, and now she's like got the really dark hair, and she's really mad at everyone, and she's wears black all the time, even though she's in Florida at the beach. So
which
yeah,
is a great contrast. Yeah. I think, and also particularly with social media, I mean, like people are saying things about other authors or Goodreads or anything like that, which I think gets a brief shout out in the book.
yes.
And so it's nice, these festivals, and something I think that's so important about what we're doing here at A Mighty Blaze is it's providing an opportunity for people to really see our authors in person and hear them speak and give them an opportunity to speak about their work that becomes a little more abstract when you're keeping everything online.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important because so much can be lost in translation, as happens in the book, that once they get together and they're able to finally talk and kind of learn about each other's experiences and backstory, then there is more understanding, which is something all of us in the whole world need to be doing more with each other.
Absolutely.
I love that this whole Adele song, the Take It Easy on Me, is such a hit. I'm like, it's because we all need to take it a little easier on each other in most cases, except for like murderers and, sex crimes, obviously.
Adele is incredible. And she's almost got a little bit of not a Total Will Price thing going on, but all of her songs are so moody and atmospheric.
Yes.
And then I've been watching these interviews with her where she's like cursing like a sailor, like cackling. And I'm like, okay, this is not exactly what I expected.
Yeah,
but I love it.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting time. And I cannot wait until I can go to an in-person event. As much as those in-person book festivals come with their own challenges, but you did rightfully identify one of the biggest perks of working in publishing, which is the free food. I read that comment and I was like, wow, same. And I would be working at Little Brown at my editorial job. And when we saw someone come in with the sandwiches or something, we like sent out a signal to all of the assistants. And we would be like, okay, like, whatever. Michael Connolly's here. So let's wait 40 minutes. And then afterwards, we'll feast for the week,
It's so true. The book festivals are great. And there's always so much delicious food. And I know. So in Key West, we have a literary seminar and I'm on the board for it. So planning the food and the alcohol is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And all the dinners that we have is really fun. And last year it got canceled. So that was another reason why I wanted to write about a book festival, because I was like, oh, we worked so hard on it. Yeah. And we had all the authors lined up, and then it just, obviously we couldn't have it. So we're planning it for this year, fingers crossed, in January.
Yes, fingers crossed.
So yeah, that was a big part of another reason why I was like, I got to write a book about a book festival on a little island and all the authors that come and the incredible events that we plan so hard.
Oh, I'm so glad that it kind of got to come to life. Maybe there was buffalo shrimp on the menu.
Oh, it happens. Yes. Yeah. And the boat ride. There's actually a boat ride that we have for the authors. Oh, wow. And that's incredible. All true.
That's amazing. Well, I was hoping to take some of our time too, Meg, to talk a little bit about your writing process if you're open to it, because I read your bio and I'm like, oh my gosh, the output is outstanding. And I remember when I was a little kid, a teenager, I was reading the Babysitters Club series, of which there are hundreds, literally hundreds. And I was just fascinating. Every time I read, I was like, how is she doing this? Like, how is this possible? And then I think I read an interview that there were like other people on the Babysitters team, and then kind of messed with my idea of what an author was. And I was having an existential crisis. But I mean, your books are so specifically you. Do you crank these out like crazy? Like, I've read before that you're a night owl, maybe. Yeah. But like, what's your approach? And has it changed? Or do you feel like you hit your stride and now you replicate it?
So yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, you must use ghostwriters. And I never have, because then, you do have to give some of the money to the ghostwriter. And I'm like, I would never do that. Why would I do that? No, I want it. And also I just love to write. And I've always done it since I was a little kid. I've always written stories, and that's just how I cope. So now I've had a lot of therapy too. And because I was like, I don't understand why I do this. And it's gotten to be problematic with personal relationships and stuff. So I found out that this is just how I cope. Just, instead of dealing with my problems, I head off and I write a book. And that's not necessarily the best way to deal with a problem. And so now actually, if you see that I'm putting out less in a year, it's a good thing. It means that I'm actually dealing with, so
self-care for
yeah,
Meg.
self-care. So yeah, the therapy is working. So the fact that I'm putting out less is good, and my relationships are going well, and yeah, so that's just what it was. So I think sometimes people are always like, oh, I'm so jealous, you write so much. I'm like, don't, no, you should not. That means if I'm writing a ton, that means that I'm not dealing with my actual relationships, and I need to slow down. And so now I'm enjoying life more and writing less, but that means the stuff I'm writing is, I'm taking more time with it. And I mean, there was like a year I wrote 11 books, like in 1 year. It was crazy. And it wasn't that things were going so badly in my life, but I did grow up, like I had an alcoholic father, and just a lot of family trauma. And I think that when that happens to you as a kid, you tend to retreat into maybe a made-up fantasy world like Genovia, which is a great place. And I wrote a lot of Star Wars fan fiction, and that's just how I coped with my problems. And I never really learned how to actually, this is getting very deep, and I'm sorry, but you asked.
We love it here.
A lot of times people will say, how do you write so many books? And I don't want to get into like the whole psychological part about it. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just love to write. But the truth is it was a coping mechanism for a lot of, childhood trauma.
Yeah, of course. I mean, books are escapist. I think that, fortunately my home was pretty stable, but I did use those Saturdays inside to devour things, maybe as a way of not having to deal with other things, for sure. And writing also. We've been talking a lot on Lit Chick with writers in the pandemic who found writing themselves into another world during this time was such an appealing prospect, because it was a shitstorm every day, it seemed like, for a while there.
I think that's such a great thing. I think, journaling and writing a fantasy novel or any kind of novel, I think is so great. And it's such a great way to cope. As long as you're also, really dealing with your own problems and not using it as just as an excuse not to deal with what's actually happening in real life.
Yeah. Well, and it's also a unique medium too, because I have friends who are musicians or artists or actors. And I think one of the appealing things about writing is that when you're the author, you have total control. Yeah. I mean, later in the process, when you're working with an editor or an agent, it becomes more collaborative. But if you're looking for a place in your life where you can exert total control and feel like finally you are in charge, which is something I totally relate to and crave, then writing a novel is an excellent place to have that happen. Although if your characters are well developed enough, I've found that sometimes they don't want to be controlled.
No, it's true. And I hear too from people who say, oh my gosh, writing a novel is so overwhelming, I couldn't do it. And then they say, but I could write a short story. And to me, a novel is just a series of short stories, about the same characters. So you can look at it that way, as just, set small goals for yourself and just do a few pages at a time. And then have them be interconnected. And so don't look at it as a whole book. Look at it as just, a page and then another page.
One day at a time.
And and that's how I've always done it, is I'm just going to do a couple pages and see how it goes.
And would you say like your preparatory process is as long as you're writing? Or, I mean, are you a big outliner, character developer, or do you dive right in?
Yeah, no, I tend to plan out the story in my head for a long time before I actually sit down to write it. So there's a book that I just turned in that they just agreed to buy it, that I swear I've been thinking about it for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And it just took that long for it to finally come together and for me to write it out, the proposal, and get, a good 50 pages into it. It just took that long to finally, and it was really during the pandemic that I was finally able to sit down and write it. So it takes a long time for me to come up with ideas. And I've been thinking about No Words for a really long time. And, every time I would see like the cardboard cutout of some male author at an airport bookstore, I'd be like, oh, why is it always a guy? Why can't it be, a woman? Where's Nora Roberts? Where are some of our leading ladies? We need to have cardboard cutouts of them. And so I was like, I'm going to put that in a book someday. And so finally I was able to with this one.
I love that. And that's very true with male authors too. I think, female authors are taking back the space a little bit by occupying Instagram and Twitter and making cutouts of themselves, as they were, not waiting for anybody else to do it, which I think is important. But You're right. I mean, you don't really see female authors on billboards for whatever reason. And yeah.
Well, we're starting to. There was just somebody saw a gigantic billboard of Amanda Gorman, our young national poet. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So we're starting to see it more and more. It was just, before I started writing this book, I wasn't seeing it so much. So we're making progress, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, a big element of No Words is bringing respect to children's and YA middle grade writers who maybe are not being given as much attention as they may be. I think that that's changing a lot in the past few years.
Definitely.
Definitely something that you recognized. And I think that, having those conversations, pushing back like Joe does, which is so appreciated.
And romance too. I think the romance conversation that it's had, one of the authors that's at the book festival is a best-selling romance author who has she has a huge Netflix show that's very popular in the fictional world that I've created. And so that was an important point that I wanted to make as well, that they have a variety of authors at this book festival and they're all super popular. But they're all represented and seen as equally important, especially to the readers.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think, and also the idea of having them in conversation with each other is really useful. You never see a Will Price and a Joe Wright paired together during these events.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were done, so it's not totally a spoiler, a bit serendipitously in the novel, but I would love to see like Jonathan Franzen in conversation with Ellen Hildebrand or something like that.
Oh my God, that would be really, and that's something that we actually try to do at our QS Book Festival. We try to put kind of diverse people, diverse as far as what they write, but thematically somewhat kind of equal. So, for instance, our current book festival, the theme is desire. So we're having, we might have some romance writers talking with some maybe nonfiction writers who've talked about desire and sex. So it should be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds like a great idea. Like more of that if we can.
Yes.
Lit Chick has been really fun too, because, when we started this show, we had an idea if we're going to have beach reads, or these are the people that are under this umbrella, and it feels as though it's expanding and expanding and expanding, which is been an exciting thing for sure. So is this book that just got sold the next book for you, Meg, or is there anything more on the horizon that you want to chat about on the show?
There's nothing that I can officially talk about right now, except I can talk about the Mediator Netflix movie, which is
so exciting. I've been tracking that.
Right. We're really excited about that. And I've been seeing scripts, and that's been really fun. That is probably the next thing that I'm allowed to talk about. And it's just been really funny because the writer-director that I'm working with, the reason I was really excited to work with her is because she's really kind of great at family stuff. Because to me, The Mediator is about family. It's about a family coming together, and then there happens to be a ghost, a really sexy ghost.
The ghost part is just on top of all the wonderful characters.
She's never done ghost stuff or any kind of paranormal stuff before, so she keeps forgetting that Jesse, who's the really hot ghost, that she keeps forgetting he's a ghost, and then so she keeps putting stage directions in for him.
You're like, no,
I'm like, no, he wouldn't do that because he's a ghost. And she's like, oh, I forgot he's a ghost. Oh, that's right, he's a ghost. So it's really, really cute and funny because she keeps having him like open the door and walk out, and I'm like, no, he's a ghost. No, he just would go through the door. She's like, oh, right, oh, okay.
That's so much fun.
Yeah.
And are you involved in the script? I mean, are you part of that team? That's fabulous. And have you been? Were you on the Princess Diaries movies, or was that not as clever?
No, I did not go. I wish I had. Like, they invited me, and I was working at the dorm at NYU. I still had my day job. Yeah, I was still working my day job, and I was like, they're never going to really make that movie. This is all a lie. And then they kept calling me with questions about the book and the changes that they were making, which they made quite a few changes. It was still adorable and I loved it, but I was like, why do these crazy people keep calling me and asking me these questions? And then it turned out they really made the movie. So I was involved in that. They kept saying, is this okay? We're doing this. And I was like, sure, crazies. Go ahead. And then it turned out they really did make the movie. So I went to the premiere, which was amazing. I got to meet Julie Andrews and all of the stars. And in fact, we even went out to Hollywood to see the premiere. And the night before the premiere, the producer, Whitney Houston, and I and some other people, we went to go see, like, sneak in to see it on just a regular screen, and we couldn't get in. It was sold out everywhere.
Wow.
And that's when she was like, I think this is going to be like a hit.
Huge.
We were like, no way, but it was. So it was really exciting.
Yeah, it's a total hit, and that must have been an incredible experience. I think I saw the movie before I read the books, now that I'm thinking about the timing of it. But there are subtle differences which are interesting. But I think the reason that it works, but by both of them have maintained popularity, is that the Mia Thermopolis character is the same. Like that to me has translated very similarly, whether it's San Francisco or New York or whatever. And she was so empowering to me at the time, because I had like real eyebrows, like super eyebrows. That's part of my story. Part of my evil villain origin story is my eyebrows. And so I remember watching the Anne Hathaway transformation and being like, yeah, thick eyebrows, this is a change. Maybe it changed it forever. They're definitely coming back now.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I mean, that they made a huge part of that in the movie, and I think it was kind of a big deal in the books. The biggest part they changed was that they killed her dad in the movie. Which Disney always does. So they had to kill
only have the capacity for one parent. I think it's like a rule that they have, but
absolutely.
I loved the dad character in the book. And the dynamic there it's a totally completely other thing that is missing from this, and he's not really replaced, I guess, in that many of the characters. But another chance to read the books again, and including the movie, because the books are just such a perfect escape, wonderfully diverse, and the cast is it's phenomenal. And I remember the Rocky Horror Picture Show scenes. So clearly.
Thank you.
That was another Princess Diaries sort of plot element I incorporated into my own.
God, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true. They did do that. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's been an incredible career for you, Meg, and I hope it keeps there's so much fun stuff, and it's been a joy to just watch it all happen. I've been a fan for so long, and you've been such an inspiration to me in writing my own stuff and putting those quirky characters on the page. I'm trying to be. It's hard to write female protagonists in the way that you do, more so than you would think, because when you're out in your life living that way and you're seeing it, you can match it. But there were so few representations of women like that in literature that when you're thinking about, oh, am I going to be compet to this book or compet to that, it's more slim pickings than I've realized. So.
Yeah, it was hard back in those days. There weren't a whole lot. And that's why I felt this burning need to write so much at that time. But I think we've come so far since then. And now I feel really happy about it. I mean, we still have a far to go. And so there's still a great need for more voices out there of all kinds. But I feel much happier and more confident that, that more voices are being heard and represented. So I'm really happy about how things are going, and I feel confident that I can relax and just retire a little bit more now.
I hope you're able to chill out a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm happy, and I feel like I just am so pleased by what your generation has done so much. As far as, there was, I think, a scene in the book of the original Princess Diaries when we were going through for the 20th anniversary, where there's a teacher that keeps feeling the girls, he's a male teacher, to see if they're wearing a bra. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
And all the girls are talking about it, but nobody does anything to, they keep telling their parents and stuff, and nobody ever fires him. And my new editor, the young editor that I have now at Harper, was in the kids section, was like, that wouldn't happen today because girls would speak out and people would listen to them. 20 years later. And I was like, oh my God, I love you guys. It's true, but it's because of you guys. You have spoken out in so many incredible ways that I almost was starting to cry. I'm like, oh my God, take that part out, because that wouldn't happen today. And I think that's so, for the most part, in most places, that would not happen. So we took that part out. And I was like, yes, I'm so glad to have taken that out.
Yeah, it's been a subtle change. I mean, and it's taken a long time. I know that some people feel like, or I see annoying conservative people on Twitter being like, overnight. Like, no, everybody's like,
it wasn't overnight.
It's not. It's been a really long time coming.
I think it was, the millennials, I think, have just done so many amazing things. And I'm so excited about it.
Thanks. We're doing more than spending our money on avocado toast. We're spending our money on more Meg Cabot books.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm so impressed. So.
That's a worthwhile endeavor. And it's been so wonderful to have you on the show, Meg. Really, we're so excited about this. So excited about this new book. As I say, every Lit Chick show, please, if you're hoping to get this for a Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa gift for somebody, order now. We all know about these supply chain. I keep saying supply chain issues, and I'll be honest with you viewers, I don't exactly know what the issues are, but something is up and it's preventing people from getting their books. So if you would like to gift No Words or any of Meg's dozens of other fantastic books, please order them now. Meg, is there an indie bookstore in Key West that people could order from on IndieBound?
There actually is. It's Books and Books Key West. And it's actually co-owned by Judy Blume. So if you would like to buy, I sign books from there all the time. So if you would like to go to IndieBound, go to Books and Books Key West and just put in the comment section that you want it signed and how you want it signed.
That's incredibly generous. Okay, great to know. Great tip. It was so fabulous to have you on. Next week, we have a Halloween-themed kind of show with the Ex-Hex Romance by Erin Sterling, which I'm very excited about. But it was so great chatting with you, Meg. Folks, please follow Mighty Blaze. You can go to megcabot.com to get her website is amazing, I have to say. So congratulations. There's tons of information on there about all of the books, all things Meg. And keep following A Mighty Blaze for more amazing interviews. Thank you so much for your time today. This is incredible.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
I'm so glad. Okay. And congrats on the book and congrats on all of the wonderful praise for No Words.
Thank you.
A well-deserved break.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, folks.